It's author, musician, singer Al Cole from a CBS radio background, now host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, celebrity interviews giving high-level public figures the chance to talk about their very special human feelings, too. Because celebrities are human beings, people, and we are all people. Coming up, a lady who talks about family. Now, her name is Shelley Mann. Guess what? Now, that has significance, people. I'm going to tell you why. Because her name, the last name is actually, it looks like it might be pronounced Mahon, because it's spelled M-A-H-O-N. But the universe don't make no mistakes here, and it's got to be pronounced Mann, because Shelley is exemplary. She's out there really promoting fathers in the parental relationship. We know that there are so many great fathers out there. There are many, many more great fathers than what we term deadbeat dads. And some of the people that we call deadbeat dads, they're not deadbeats. They just, they're in the wrong place, wrong time or something, not given the right opportunities by our society sometimes. And we know that. So we're going to be talking proactively about fatherhood here. We're going to be talking proactively about parenthood and family, and ultimately our human family does. As she speaks, go to Shelley, S-H-E-L-L-Y-D, Mann, M-A-H-O-N.com, and also check out this website. You're going to love it too, apartnotbroken.com. That's apart, A-P-A-R-T, notbroken.com. Welcome, Shelley, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. How are you today?
Hi, Al. I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
This is really a pleasure of mine, too. It's going to be a wonderful show. We're going to really edify a lot of people here with the great work that you're doing. And thank you right from the start for being one of our 2015 People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards sponsors. And let's talk about your work here. Now, we might think it's unusual for a woman to come forward and saying that children need fathers, but it's a no-brainer. We know that. How did you come about that, even if I want to call it in your life, the simple fact that it's true that children need fathers? What made you start to not only think that way, but also act upon it professionally?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to share that. So, it's very interesting because I am married, and I've been married for 22 years, and both my husband and myself have married parents. So it's a very common question for me to get is, why would you do this work when you're a married female, no less? And what really brought me to this work is it starts in the very beginning. I was all of 18 years old. I was a vocal performing arts major at a state college in Colorado. And I went to my very first human development and family studies class. And the instructor said, today we're going to talk about why some kids make it and some kids don't, regardless of their circumstances. And that really set me on a path of working with families and youth in a lot of different contexts. I worked in social services, and I worked in criminal justice, and I worked in the university setting. And especially I would say probably mostly in the criminal justice setting, I really saw firsthand the impact that not having a dad in your life had on a young person. I really saw repeatedly that not only do young people want a relationship with their father, but when they do have that, they have less problems in their life, and they have more opportunities to build confidence and capabilities and learn how to be resilient, learn how to bounce back when things are tough for them. So that was the beginning of my path. And then as I moved through my education and my PhD program, I created that program, Apart Not Broken, Learn, Connect, and Create, and it was completely directed toward fathers to provide them with the resources that they need to learn how sometimes to become engaged in their kids' lives.
Well, that's right, and it's such an important engagement as well. We know statistically, there's no getting around it, that in families where the father and mother are very close and they stay together and they have those children turn out to be more successful in every way that you define success. It doesn't have to be just money success. Emotional success and intellectual success, as well as success within the business framework and the professional framework. Now, I'm going to ask you a question here that really has pretty much of a direct answer. And that direct answer now can variegate into 1,000 different points of light here. Why is this the case, where in a nuclear family where the mother and the father are both there, they're both active in their children's lives, why would that then culminate in human success for those children in all ways that we define success, Shelley?
That's a really good question. One of the things that happens, and this is whether it's a family that stays together or a family that chooses to separate, is that when children feel like they have both of their parents in their life, it's like they then have double the resources, double the love, double the support. And actually, even when those families then choose to maybe remarry or other people are brought into the family, when done well, it adds to the child. It doesn't take away from the child. So one of the things I hear kids say a lot is they say, when they hear their parents maybe say a bad thing about the other parent, one of the things children will say is, that's my mom, and I'm part of that person. Who I am is made up of both of those people. And so when they hear something negative about the other partner, then it can really have a bad feeling. So when parents are able to work together, you have more cooperation, they have the support of their parents, they have parents who maybe attend their events or talk to their teachers or are just part of their life in a real integral way, even if they're at a distance. I've worked with a lot of fathers who live thousands of miles away. And like you were saying in the introduction, we live in a very interesting world where when you learn the tools and you have the resources, you can really stay in contact and be in communication with your children even when you're separated by a big distance. So that stability and that belief that, you have this support behind you carries with the child with them every day, really.
Absolutely. And we're off to the races here. I mean, we're making so much sense that I know you're loving it. And I'm talking about you, my listening audience right now. Talk a little bit here about discipline, especially from the dadly point of view, and what the special roles of dads are in our society in that way.
Sure, I'd love to. I love what you said, that, it comes down to fathers are not mothers. They really aren't. They do things differently. There's a recent study that I read said that 9 out of 10 times mothers will hold their infant in exactly the same position, and 10 out of 10 times fathers will hold them in a different position. And that really speaks to that it's really different how men and women approach being with their child, whether it's under a disciplinary action or just in a comfort way. But one of the ways that fathers do things differently is they play. And I heard your reference earlier in the show for deadbeat dads, and that's a phrase that has, for me, has some triggers, because I believe that fathers oftentimes will discipline their children in ways while they're engaged with them differently than mothers would be. So, for example, they may go play basketball with their child and talk to them about what happened. And largely I think that discipline is one of those things that doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in the context of what your relationship is like and what you like to do together. So it's really about children learn over time what they can expect from a parent, and they know, everybody knows this, like how to play mom off dad, right? They know, like, mom's going to help me with this and dad's going to help me with this. And so they learn very quickly to know when and where to go for the information that they need. And so dads play a really important part by sometimes laying the heavy hand down. Sometimes they're just more stern or they're more direct, or it just is part of their personality. Other times they go do playful things. But interestingly, one of the things I really want to say about this is dads also promote independence more than mothers do often. And so a dad may be more likely to give the child a little room to explore and a little room to think about what the impact of this is, and what it looks like on a bigger scale. So they just tend to be a little bit more comfortable with giving their kids a little room.
What a beautiful point that is. And I don't want the thought to be missed here. So I'm going to make a quick reflection on what you just said, Shelley. Particularly what you last said, that dads tend to promote independence with their discipline in many cases. And it doesn't even have to be discipline. Just, that's the way dads are. It's the way a man is built. That is a little bit different from the way a woman is built. Promoting independence. We know that guys, they want to have this confidence aspect about them. And sometimes, if it's not there, then they'll pretend, and now they'll put on the facade, and sometimes that becomes over macho. It can even be bullying, that sort of thing. But dads in their best sense, and men in their best sense, are promoters of independence. Beautiful independence, and I'll even say something that sounds redundant. Free independence. Where, you get it. When we're talking about, hey, look, I'm on your side. I want you to be the person that you are. I'm going to help you to be the person that you are. That sounds like another tautology, but it's absolutely true. And everybody who's reached the age of 21 knows exactly what I'm talking about right now. One of the ways, and I mentioned this to you in our chat a few days ago, that one of the ways that I helped my son to be independent in a very structural way, in a disciplined way, is when he did something that maybe he shouldn't have done. I had him write about it. I said, "All right, look, I'm not going to lecture you on this. Write about this, because you're a very intelligent kid, and I think when you think this over, you're gonna find out answers for yourself. I don't have to shout about this stuff and try to get it into your mind. You can do that yourself. So write something about it. Come back, we'll talk about it." So he wrote something. He wrote it beautifully, and I didn't have to lecture him. He said, "Dad, I understand." And I understand even better now that I put my thoughts on a page of, page kind of literature. Dad, I'm starting to like writing. And so I meted down some discipline, and I asked him to do something that he would never have done otherwise that turned out good for him. And he's a great writer right now, as well as a creative person in general. And that is an example of promoting independence as well as discipline in a child that dads can offer, isn't it, Shelley?
It absolutely is. It is. And I love what you said about it's really a journey to help them discover who they are.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I often do is similar to what you were just sharing is I try to remove, I help coach people to remove the emotion out of it when they discipline and talk to the child about the impact. What you did was a beautiful way for your son to, I'm sure as he was writing, not only did he say what he did, but he also probably wrote about what that looked like and what the impact was on both him and maybe other people around him.
Mm-hmm.
And, removing that emotional kind of moral side of it and looking at who they are, what they want to become, helping them grow and nurture that can be really, really helpful. That's great.
Absolutely. And we're helping you right now, people, and I think you know that. So I want you to run to these two websites and be helped even more. Go to ShelleyDMann.com. Man is spelled M-A-H-O-N. And also go to ApartNotBroken.com. That's www.apartnotbroken.com. We're talking to Shelley Mann today, a great expositor of family and particularly fathers. Very much needed talk in our world on people of distinction with Al Cole. I'm going to turn the corner on another factor that is so real in our world, and then more specifically in our country we're talking about divorce right now, and even before divorce, just basic separation. The parents, or in this case, the man and the woman, the husband and the wife, maybe not seeing eye to eye on certain things, and a lot of times it has to do with money matters. We know that. Sometimes it has to do with, well, what are you doing on the outside? Well, why'd you come home so late? We know where that's coming from. And sometimes it has to do with lifestyle, just in general. One person's going in one direction, the other is in the other direction, and it doesn't always have to do with I don't love you anymore, or you're a beast, and I never should have married you in the first place. No, I mean these things are natural in our world; they're normal, and it's the way that we deal with them that that really is the important factor here. We know that divorce is going to happen, being separated is going to happen in X amount of our relationships, and if we can go into it with eyes open and with the best emotional intentions here, especially for the children, we're going to be a lot better off. So we're going to explore that with Shelley. You work with a lot of divorced and separated fathers. Tell us some of the impacts here. What fathers say about the way that they're treated in divorced and separated situations, certain things that we can do to help fathers in those situations as well, Shelley.
Sure, absolutely. So, really one of the biggest things I hear comes from the court perspective, which is that about 40% of children end up living in a divorced home by the time they're 16 years of age, and about 80% of the time, the mother is awarded primary custody of the child. Yeah. And oftentimes, and I won't say it's all the time, but more and more we have fathers that want to be part of their child's life. They want to be engaged, they want to be around, and they want to contribute. And then they're not given that access through the court. And then there's, of course, other circumstances where that's not the case. But we're really seeing a shift where it's not that bring home the bacon kind of dad anymore. It's a dad that wants to be a part of the life of their children. So that's one of the biggest things that I've really seen with fathers. And it's really what got me engaged in working with dads is that I started to see that they were not only underserved, but that most of the programs that were out there were written for mothers, and that most fathers were struggling to even know how to go find that information when they wanted it. So they didn't know when and where or how to look for what they needed in a divorce situation so that they could have that access to their child.
Yeah, we're indicating frustration here, and it's not necessarily caused by the imagination of the father.
Right.
We're talking about something real here in our society that we realistically have to deal with. Now that we've, painted, we've kind of defined a little bit of the problem. Now, this is a big question, and it's not going to be answered just in this show of People of Distinction, but I think you can lay some groundwork in paving a path to answering it in our society. What do we do about this? How do we make our court system, for one, consistent with the needs of our societies and having fathers really participate? We need that. How do we change some of the mindsets out there to be conducive with the needs of fathers and families as well, Shelley?
That is a really good question. And like you said, a very big one. I think it starts with education. Really interestingly, I just read a study where they had about 800 fathers across several demographic groups, and both in the men and the women in divorce situations, 50% of fathers felt that they were replaceable by the mother or replaceable by another male. And that was true for moms as well. Moms reported feeling like they could replace the father or they could find a partner that would replace the father. They both also reported not believing that fathers had the skills and the knowledge that they needed to be a father. And when I read something like that, I have two thoughts. The first thought is, that, wow, of course they're not replaceable, but there needs to be information and awareness. There needs to be broad awareness that fathers are important and why they're important. But then there's also this underlying piece of fathers and mothers not thinking they have the skills and knowledge to be good fathers, and that is really looking at, if that is true at any level, then what is it that we need to do to build that up so that kids can have access to their biological dad?
Yeah.
So I think it comes with awareness, education, support, really coming together and honoring that the child wants to have access to their dad. Even college students will say, college students who did not have access to their father growing up, when surveyed, will say, I just wish I would have known him growing up.
Isn't this something? I didn't know that figure, and it's good for us to get this out on People of Distinction. The figure that you said, that about maybe half of mothers out there and people in general really think that fathers are replaceable. Now, that's a big-time figure, people. Half means if it ain't you, it's the person next to you. So that's half of our society right now.
And like I said earlier, when you enter into another marriage after divorce and you bring in step-parents or you bring in other people, the best way to look at it is that you have now brought in more, not less, for this child, that you've now brought in more people that can love him or her. And how that goes largely lands on how the co-parents work together. And so it's really important for parents to, number one, heal themselves and then learn how to develop what is now going to be a new relationship with each other, because it's not going to look like it did when they walked down the aisle and they thought they were going to be together forever.
Yeah.
So it's really important that they begin to do that self-healing and they do what they need to do to get through their own grief and their own pain and put their child first and say, what is it going to take for us to establish new routines and respect with one another so that we can do what's best for our child. I think ultimately one of the messages for parents who are going through divorce to really remember is that you're the example for your child on what relationships look like. You're providing for them security and daily routines of security, but also a long-term example. And it's important to really be considerate of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're talking sense today on People of Distinction with Al Cole. We've got some minutes left in the show, and, I want to take it out with two different subjects here. We're going to get to some possibility things, but sticking with fathers' involvement benefiting mothers. How do we do that, and what are the results of fathers benefiting mothers here?
Right, sure. So what I like to say is engage early and engage often, because when fathers are not engaged early and often, they become distant fathers who then become disconnected and then become absent over time. And so research shows pretty clearly that it sort of gets worse as time goes on if a father's not engaged in the beginning. And so that's where that mother really looking at herself and doing the work that it takes to heal so that she can engage with the father with boundaries and provide some structure in the relationship is really important. But we also know that when a father is involved, he's more likely to continue to be involved. So it's the opposite of that is also true. And they're also more likely to pay child support. And over time, in the first 2 years or so of divorce are the hardest. Over time, that father's just going to be more and more and more involved and invested in the child. So it's really to the mother's benefit to do that. And mothers are, we're starting to see that providing programs for moms that talk about fathers is important. And so I'm actually now, just recently, starting to share my program with mothers, even though the whole program is written for fathers. And that's because mothers are the gatekeepers for that relationship. So if they can have compassion and understanding and an insight into what's going on for fathers, then they can then start to engage the father in different ways. And then that has a ripple effect of having tons of positive benefits for the well-being of the child, like we've talked about in this conversation. Just more access and more involvement is going to be a healthier kid at the end of the day.
Absolutely. All of the things that we've dealt with now, these are important matters, but we've dealt with them. So the possibility into our human future is, how will our human family look, our structural society. Look, when we have dealt with all of this stuff and our families are stable and people are generally happy now.
The first thing is it really comes down to when we have people who know themselves first, when we have people who are clear about their values, they're clear about who they are and what they want in a relationship, they have done the work to heal from maybe anything that's happened in their past and they are now creating a future moving forward instead of living in a past, then we start with two people who are in a healthier place to begin with. And I think that that's one of the things that gets in the way of a lot of relationships along the way is that they have this background or they have these things that have happened that they have not dealt with themselves or that they bring into the relationship. So I think that on one level, we'll have a society that has individuals that are happier and healthier and better functioning people. And then when you can bring that together into a marriage or a relationship, whatever that looks like, then you have two people who can then support each other and can work together to bring up a child. And I do think that can happen when you are separated. It just takes, like you said, a level of maturity, and it takes being willing to say, I'm willing to recreate my life moving forward. I'm willing to recreate this relationship and still have it be something that comes from love just for the sake of the fact that we have this child together. And whether you're married or separated, I think that's important. But, I think it really starts with the person. I think it starts with knowing who you are and then entering into relationships that are healthier from the get-go because you have good communication and you know who you are. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wise answer there. And I'll just add my last 2 cents here with that. One of the ways of honoring others in our lives, just in general, and we'll get to the family, is they should communicate, and sometimes not even with each other. Sometimes they can make it worse when they're doing that with each other. If they each take what I define as their alone time and give each other the space to do that, give each other the respect to do that, and say, hey, look, I know you need your special time right now. When we take our special time, we're communicating with ourselves. We're liking ourselves better that way, and we're liking the other person. Take some alone time. Calm down a little bit, and let that other person, give that other person the freedom to do that. Have respect for the person who you love, and we're going to have this world a better place. Thank you so much, Shelley, for being my special guest here on People of Distinction with Al Cole. One more time, run to these 2 websites and support Shelley and all she's doing to support great fathers in our world and also great mothers, too. Supporting the family is where it's at. ShelleyDMann.com. Man, again, is spelled M-A-H-O-N. Go to also apartnotbroken.com, www.apartnotbroken.com. And thank you again for being one of our 2015 People of Distinction Humanitarian Award sponsors. So much appreciated, everything that you're doing. Boy, we're going to spotlight that on our People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards. Thank you, Shelley, for being my guest here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an honor.